Hello, and welcome to Live Parkinson's, Live an Exceptional Life. I'm your host, Chris Custenbotter, and I've been living with Parkinson's for the past 13 years. This podcast is designed to help as many people live a great quality of life as possible after a Parkinson's diagnosis. It's based on the 4 strategies that I've been using for the past 13 years to live an exceptional life. It's based on extensive research and studying people that have done exceptional things. Now, today's topic is the 6 proven benefits of maintaining social interaction with Parkinson's to help prevent social isolation. Now, before we get started, I just have a brief disclaimer that I wanted to go over, and that is that this program is for educational purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or treat Parkinson's disease. It is imperative that you maintain the treatment plan that was designed between you and your physician. All the experiences being shared today are based solely on my own personal experiences. Now, let's dive in. Have you or someone you know left groups that they participated in because of their Parkinson's diagnosis? Do you limit the amount of time that you spend in public? Then this podcast is for you. So, before we get into the benefits of maintaining social interaction and why it's so important to prevent social isolation, let's look at what the impacts of social isolation are. Exactly what is social isolation? Well, according to the National Institutes on Aging, in their article Loneliness and Social Isolation, it's a lack of social contacts and having few people to interact with regularly. Now, how does social isolation differ from loneliness? Are they the same thing or are they different? Well, they are slightly different, but they are related. Loneliness is when a person has intense feelings of being alone and are separated from loved ones. So you can see that there's a slight difference between the two. Now, to illustrate this, I want to read a story. It's called Echoes of Solitude to give you a little flavor for what social isolation is and the devastating impacts it can have on somebody living with Parkinson's disease. So let me start. The Echoes of Solitude. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the horizon, Sarah sat in her favorite armchair, the rhythmic ticking of the clock the only companion in the room. It had been 3 years since the diagnosis, 3 years of battles waged both in her body and in her soul. Parkinson's had entered her life like an uninvited guest, leaving tremors in its wake and an uncertain future in its shadow. At first, Sarah had refused to let it define her. She attended support groups, engaged in physical therapy, and took her medications diligently. She fought back with fierce determination. However, as time marched on, so did the relentless progression of the disease. Her once steady hands now shook, and the simplest tasks became the insurmountable challenges. Each day seemed to chip away a little more of her confidence, leaving behind a fragile shell of the woman she once was. The turning point came when she stumbled during a walk in the park, a place she once frequented with boundless joy. The judgmental eyes of strangers, filled with pity and curiosity, had cut deeper than any tremor. The fear of becoming a spectacle, of losing control in public, led her to retreat within the walls of her own home. Slowly, the invitations stopped coming. Friends who once laughed with her around the dinner table and shared secrets under the starlit skies now seemed to inhabit a different world. It was not their fault. They just didn't know how to navigate the shifting terrain of Parkinson's any more than she did. Loneliness became her closest confidant. The days stretched into weeks and weeks into months. Sarah's world shrank to the confines of her living room, the once vibrant spaces now echoing with silence. She filled her time with books, the tales of others offering solace when her own voice seemed to have faded into the void. The pages became her window to the outside world, a world she now viewed from a distance. One winter morning, as the snow blanketed the world in pristine white, Sarah awoke with a newfound resolve. The isolation had cocooned her, but had also given her space to reflect. She realized that she couldn't let Parkinson steal more than it already had. Her spirit, though weary, still longed for connection. With a trembling hand, she dialed the number she hadn't touched in far too long. The familiar voice on the other end held a hint of surprise, but also an undertone of relief. Her friend welcomed her back into the fold, eager to bridge the gap that had formed between them. Sarah's journey was not without its challenges. The world had changed in her absence, and she had changed too. But with every step she took, she carried the weight of her own resilience. She learned to lean on others, to let them in, and to find strength in vulnerability. Through perseverance and a newfound sense of acceptance, Sarah rekindled connections that had once seemed lost. Her world expanded, filled with the warmth of human touch and the music of shared laughter. Parkinson's was no longer the defining chapter of her story. It was just one of the rich threads in the tapestry of life. As the years passed, Sarah discovered that while Parkinson had taken much from her, it had also revealed the depth of her own inner fortitude and the capacity for human connection to heal even the deepest wounds of isolation. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of flavor of what social isolation is and the devastating effects it can have. But as with the story of Sarah, we can overcome these challenges. So how prevalent is social isolation? Well, a study published in the NJP Parkinson's Disease journal showed that out of 157 participants with PD, learned that those who felt lonely experienced a worse quality of life and greater PD symptoms and severity than their peers. In fact, there was a UK study that 54% of people with Parkinson's reported feelings of nervousness and discomfort going out in public. And that's one of the major reasons a lot of people become isolated, which leads to social isolations because they're embarrassed to go out in public. In another study in 2017, they reported that 43% of the study participants with Parkinson's were diagnosed with a social phobia, meaning that led them to drop out of a lot of the activities that they were involved in because they didn't like going out in public and worrying about the fear of falling or tremors or people looking at them because of their symptoms. So, why do people socially withdraw? One is their physical motor symptoms. They get out in public and, like I said, they have tremors, or maybe their speech is slow and people have trouble understanding them, or maybe they have some drooling. Whatever it happens to be, that oftentimes will lead them to withdraw socially. Number two is some psychiatric problems, and anxiety and depression. They're huge factors in people with Parkinson's. In fact, I've read upwards of 60 to 70% of people with Parkinson's develop depression and or anxiety, which is going to, of course, cause them to limit their interactions in public. And number three is cognitive function. A study found that significant correlation in cognitive impairment in people who were socially isolated. People that were isolated and weren't participating in activities showed a decline in their cognitive. So now that we understand a little bit about social isolation and loneliness and what it is and all the negative aspects, let's turn our attention to what the positive aspects are. So what are the 6 benefits of maintaining social interaction with Parkinson's disease? So let's start out with number 1, and that's combating loneliness. So why is this important? Well, Dr. Lori Mishley, who monitors the progress of 1,500 patients with PD, in an article in Outthinking Parkinson's, it was called Loneliness, Social Isolation. She found that the single biggest predictor of the rate of Parkinson's progression is if you answer true to the question, are you lonely? So people that answered true to the question, are you lonely, tended to have a higher rate of disease progression than those patients that didn't. So how can we combat isolation? What are some of the benefits of combating isolation in people living with Parkinson's disease? Number 1 is reducing the risk of depression. Studies show that people with Parkinson's who are socially isolated are more likely to experience depression than those who are not. So depression can have a lot of devastating effects. So if we can help prevent depression in people with Parkinson's, we're going to be able to help them maintain those social interactions, which are so important in preventing loneliness and social isolation. Improve quality of life. Social interactions have shown to improve your mood, reduce your stress, and boost your cognitive function. And studies have shown that people living with Parkinson's who are socially active have a higher quality of life than those who aren't, which seems to make sense because if you're sitting at home alone and you have no social interaction, it's gonna lead to depression. And just as the story with Sarah, it leads to loneliness and you just want to curl up and go away. Now, we looked at 3 benefits that combating isolation can have on the person living with Parkinson's. But are there benefits to family and friends as well? Well, let's take a look. Number 1 is when people can maintain good social interactions, it helps reduce the burden of care. As we all know, that social isolation can take a large toll on a family of people living with Parkinson's. When the person socially isolates, their family and friends assume more responsibility for their care, and that can lead to stress and burnout. Burnout is a big problem with caregivers. So if you're a caregiver and you need additional support, please make sure that you join a support group to talk about your feelings with others. or seek professional help as well. Another benefit is improved relationships. When people have the opportunity to interact with each other and share their experiences, they develop deeper understanding and appreciation for each other. And then finally, it helps reduce caregiver stress. When caregivers don't have to worry all the time about the person sitting at home, socially isolated, when they have to go to the store or they have to run out, or even if they want to just take a break and go out with a friend for dinner, they don't have to worry so much when the person living with Parkinson's has more social interaction, because they can feel good and it helps reduce their stress level. So what are some of the ways that we can combat social isolation? Well, number one, you can join a support group. There's a lot of Parkinson's support groups, but there's other support groups out there, like I mentioned before, caregiver support groups. They offer a safe space for talking about your experiences with others. You can learn from them as well. I mean, it's great to share your experiences, but one of the things support groups are going to help you do is that you're going to find that people have similar experiences, and you can see how they deal with those as well. Another thing you can do is volunteer. Whenever you go out and help someone else, you really forget about your own problems. I remember reading an article years ago that a man that was on the verge of having a nervous breakdown, and he went to see the psychiatrist, and he assumed that the psychiatrist was going to give him medication to help him with his anxiety and nervousness and prevent the nervous breakdown. The psychiatrist told him, "Go help your neighbor." And the man looked at him and said, "Well, how's that going to help me?" He said, the psychiatrist told him, "When you help someone else, you forget about your own problems. So if you volunteer and share your experiences and help others, you'll also foster a sense of purpose and well-being." So that's another great way to do it. And then finally, counseling. Counseling, if you need counseling and support, if someone's really socially isolated and concerned for their welfare, counseling is a great way to help, overcome some of the feelings and express your feelings. What are you feeling as a caregiver? What are you feeling as the person living with Parkinson's? What can you do to go out and start participating in activities again? All right, let's bring this full circle and summarize how social interaction can help combat social isolation for both the Parkinson's patient and their family and friends. Let's start with the person living with Parkinson's. Number one, remember we said it helps to reduce the risk of depression, gives you an improved quality of life, and it helps slow disease progression. Now, in terms of how's it benefit your family and friends, it helps reduce the burden of care, it leads to improved relationships, and it helps reduce stress. So that is the number one benefit of social interaction and the benefits it provides the person and the families living with Parkinson's disease. All right, let's take a look at number two. Okay, benefit number two is providing emotional support. Now, I think one of the things that's important to recognize is that emotional support is a two-way street. It's not just the caregiver giving emotional support to the person living with Parkinson's, but it's also the person living with Parkinson's helping to support and give their best for their caregiver and their family as well. So some of the benefits of providing emotional support is that it helps reduce the feelings of isolation. When you feel that people are there for you, you have friends and family, you don't feel isolated. You feel engaged and you feel active and a part of your family. It's improved mood and well-being. If you know that you have emotional support and people are going to be there by your side, you feel good about yourself, because you know that if you get in trouble, if you have difficulty with your balance, you have difficulty with walking, or when you're out in public, maybe you have some freezing. If you know in your mind that you have the emotional support and those people are going to be there for you, it's going to really help improve your well-being. It's going to give you increased motivation and energy. When you know people care about you and you feel good about yourself, you're motivated. You want to set some goals and you want to help them. You want to help them succeed as well. So it gives you motivation and energy as the person living with Parkinson's. You're more likely then to want to go out and do things with friends and family because they're always supporting you, and you want to support them by doing activities, whether it's going out to dinner, going to a movie, a concert, a show, whatever it happens to be. So those are some of the things that emotional support can provide. So how do we provide emotional support? That's always a good question. It sounds great to say, well, I emotionally support my partner, but how do you do that? Well, number one is you can be a good listener. Really listen when they're feeling down, or if they're having a problem, or they're having an issue that they need solved. Try to understand what they're telling you and then engage them and see if you can help them solve their problem. So number one is be a good listener. Number two, you can offer some practical help, like, hey, I know you're having trouble today with your walking and your balance, so I'll run to the store for you today. I mean, that's just a load off their mind and a burden off their back. So if you're willing to run to the store and get groceries for them or pay a bill, they're going to be grateful. And another thing is transportation. Maybe they're part of a support group or maybe an exercise group and they can't drive and they need transportation. Another way to provide emotional support is to offer to give them a ride. They're going to feel great about that. Be supportive and encouraging. We talked in the last podcast about positive energy. If you're positive and you have that positive energy, they're going to feed off that positive energy as well, because positive people attract positive people. And so if you're positive, then the person living with Parkinson's is sure going to be positive as well. And then you're both going to have a great quality of life. And then encourage them to stay active. Walk with them in the evenings, or have them go out and do some yard work or garden, or participate in housework, chores around the house. Maybe there's a project where you want to put picture frames up on the wall with family photos and things. Get them involved, keep them active, because that's going to help them stay engaged as well. And then finally, if there are really issues that you don't feel like you can solve, it's okay to seek professional help. Go out and say, I need help, and what are some types of interventions that I can do to help my partner? Some additional tips for caregivers. Be respectful of their feelings and don't try to minimize their pain. I know one of the things that we often hear a lot is, well, you don't look like you have Parkinson's. You're not shaking. Well, I mean, I know people are trying to be kind, but a lot of people take that as they're minimizing your situation. Like they don't really understand that there's a lot of other motor and non-motor symptoms that go along with Parkinson's. So, when people say, oh, you don't look like you have Parkinson's, or you look great, or I would have never known, some people take that as minimizing their condition. Avoid advice. Don't just give advice unless they ask for it, because sometimes if you're telling people what to do, one of the first things they do is do the opposite. I know kids do that. You tell them not to do something, what's the first thing they're going to do? The opposite. And so, if they come to you with advice and ask for your opinion, that's a great time to share. But if you're all the time going and saying, well, you really need to do this, or you really need to make sure you're taking your medication, or you really need to make sure you're using your walker, it kind of makes them feel a little bit helpless, in that they need someone there to guide them all the time. So offer advice when they ask for it or when you think they need it. Be patient and understanding. I mean, and again, this goes both ways, both between the Parkinson's patient and the caregiver. But when you can be patient and understanding, it goes a long way in making a happy relationship, because then you both understand each other. And then finally, as a caregiver, take care of yourself. Don't let yourself get burned out. If you find yourself getting really stressed and you don't know where to turn, ask a friend for help, or call an agency and see if you can get someone to come in and sit with your partner, so that you can go out and maybe, like I said, go to lunch with a friend, or go for a walk in the park, just to get some time to clear your head, because burnout is not good for either person in the group. So to tie it all back together, emotional support is a key piece of a person with Parkinson's maintaining a good social interaction. And it's important that emotional support goes both ways, and that you're both involved in supporting each other, because Parkinson's affects the whole family. And if we can help improve relationships and have increased emotional support, then it's going to lead to better quality of lives for everyone involved. All right, moving on to number 3. Talked about this, and this is one of my first strategies that I talked about, and that is encouraging physical activity. One of the things it does is it automatically encourages social interaction, because whether you go to a gym or whether you walk with someone else, you're getting out of the house and you're meeting other people. Maybe you see the neighbor walking down the street. At least there's some type of social interaction. But group fitness classes, sports, or walking groups are a great way to meet new people and a great way to have social interactions. I talked in the first 2 podcasts about why I do group fitness classes, is because I get part of it is the exercise and improving my health with exercise, but a big part of it too is just the social interaction that I get from getting to hang out with a lot of great people and meeting a lot of new friends. Second thing that encouraging physical activity is going to do is it's going to help you improve your mood and your well-being. When you're physically active, your body starts to release endorphins, and those endorphins are mood boosting, and they're going to make you feel good. We often heard of the runner's high. Why do people run? Well, because they release these endorphins and it makes them feel good. And that's true for anybody. When you start doing physical exercise, it's going to release endorphins. They're going to make you feel better, and that's going to help reduce some of the stress, and then even help you sleep better. And then finally, it's going to give you some increased confidence and self-esteem. When you're physically active, you feel better about yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to equate to weight loss, but you're going to see results. When you start to exercise, everybody starts somewhere. And if you increase slowly, you're going to start to see results. And then you're going to start to feel good about yourself. And then it's going to give you confidence to keep doing more and more and more. So it's important to stay active. Now, one of the keys, though, is a lot of people make this mistake is they go to the gym and they kill themselves on the first day. And then they're so sore and they can't move for the next couple of days that they completely give it up. So it's important. 3 things that I really want to bring up is number 1, that you talk to your doctor first and get them to approve your exercise plan. Number 2 is to pick something you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. So look for group fitness classes. That's a great opportunity for social interaction. And I talked about the Momentum program before, but I can't say enough about it, that to the people in there, the instructors and the participants are just outstanding, and we've all become a real tight-knit family. And number 3 is start slowly. Don't dive in and kill yourself on the first day. In the next episode, I'm going to have a guest on, a certified personal trainer, to talk about exercise programs in Parkinson. So hopefully you'll look forward to that. Some action steps are, number 1, like I said, talk to your doctor before you dive into any fitness program, and then set realistic goals. Don't say, I'm going to go out and run 5 miles on the first day, or I'm going to swim a mile. I mean, that's not realistic, especially if you've been pretty sedentary. So start slow. I'm going to walk a quarter of a mile today, or I'm going to walk a half a mile, or I'm going to swim 10 laps, whatever it happens to be. But start out slow and then build into it. Another thing you can do is find a workout buddy. That really helps improve social interaction, and it gives you something to look forward to as well, because you hold each other accountable and you have something to look forward to every day. So exercise and encouraging physical activity goes a long way in helping improve social interactions and really preventing social isolation. All right, moving on to number 4. It helps improve your cognitive stimulation. It makes it easier to participate in social activities if you're mentally sharp and you're not fatigued, and you can participate with others. It gives you increased confidence and self-esteem. When you know that you can solve problems and work through issues, then that's going to boost your self-esteem, and that's going to want to make you go out and interact with other people as well. And then it's going to help reduce the risk of depression, because when you feel good about yourself and you feel good mentally because you're working on things that are going to keep your mind sharp, then it's going to help to prevent depression. Because if you just sit around and feel sorry for yourself, you're going right down the road to anxiety and depression. And you want to stay off that road. You want to get in the fast lane to being positive and having great self-esteem. And a way to do that is to stay mentally sharp. And you can test yourself every day. You can say the months backwards. You can count to 100 by 4s, those type of things. It's making sure that you're testing yourself mentally every single day to stay sharp and prevent cognitive decline. So what are some things that you can do to help prevent cognitive decline and help you stay sharp so that you can continue to participate in activities with others? Number 1 is puzzles. There's all kinds of puzzles out there. There's jigsaw puzzles. There's crossword puzzles. Of course, crossword puzzles tends to be a little bit more solitary, but you can get together with friends and solve crossword puzzles. And then there's Sudoku puzzles. If you like numbers, that's a good option as well. Those are going to help keep your mind sharp and help prevent cognitive decline. Games. Well, what kind of games? Well, there's all kinds of games that really can help keep your mental acuity strong. Chess. And again, you're playing with somebody else, so you have social interaction. Plus, it's challenging. Scrabble is another game where you typically play with a number of people, getting great social interaction, and it's fun. And you're also testing your mental ability there as well, because you have to come up with a lot of different words. And then, of course, there's some board games like Trivial Pursuit is a perfect example, is a way to help keep yourself mentally sharp. Learning a new skill is another way, whether it be learning a new language, learn to play a musical instrument. Maybe you want to, like I decided to learn guitar, but maybe you want to decide you want to play piano, or you want to learn how to play the flute or clarinet. Whatever it happens to be, that's a great way to keep yourself mentally sharp. And in terms of learning a new language, there's a lot of free things out there that you can use to help you learn a new language. Duolingo is one of those. I talked about that, I think, in the first episode when I went to Italy. I used Duolingo to learn Italian. Now, was I great at it? No, but it kept me mentally sharp. And then volunteering is another great option as well, because when you volunteer, you're sharing your personal experiences and you're sharing your expertise with others. And when you're actively involved in doing that, that's going to keep you mentally sharp as well. And then finally, support groups. If you become involved in support groups, you're sharing your experiences, but you're also helping others too. So that's going to keep your mind sharp because you're interacting with other people and you have to formulate responses and things like that. So all those things are going to help you stay socially engaged. And then moving on, finally, number 5 is fostering a sense of purpose. Okay, what's that mean? When you wake up every day and you feel like you've got purpose that, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to practice my instrument, or I'm going to go to the gym and take a group fitness class. Those are things that hold you accountable. So if you have a purpose and you're going to be able to work with others, that's going to help you build and maintain that social interaction. So it's important that you have a sense of purpose and a sense of drive that wakes you up every day so that you don't sit there and get up out of bed and then just go, I'm going to watch TV all day and sit in here by myself, because that's not doing you any good. A sense of purpose is also going to help your mood. Whenever you've got a sense of purpose, you feel like you've accomplished things. And when you accomplish tasks or you accomplish goals, it really makes you feel good about yourself. So fostering a sense of purpose is really going to help you in your social interactions as well. And then it's going to give you increased opportunities for social interaction. So like I said, when you have a purpose that, hey, I'm going to go exercise every day, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to have social interaction, or I'm going down to the park and play chess with my friends. That's social interaction. So you're challenging your cognition, you're challenging, and you have that sense of purpose, and then you have some goals, and that's going to make you feel good about yourself. So how do you build a sense of purpose? Well, you could volunteer, help others. If you wake up and you say, oh gosh, I get to feel great because I get to go work with Special Olympics, I'm going to go help at the food bank. That gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of feeling good about yourself. Again, find a hobby. That gives you another sense of purpose. Like I like to tie flies for fly fishing. So that gives me a sense of purpose. In the evenings, I say, I want to get out and tie some new flies, or I tie flies for my brother and friends. So it gives me a sense of satisfaction that you're starting with bare hook, and then at the end, you've got this beautiful looking fly that you can catch fish with. And then set goals. Have goals, and you have some things to push for. You're going to do a lot better because you have things that you want to succeed at. That's going to improve your sense of purpose. And when you have a sense of purpose, again, it's going to improve your social interactions. And then finally, number 6 is learning and information sharing. That when we're talking about learning and information sharing, we're talking about increasing your opportunities for social interaction by getting together with others and sharing what you know, and listening to others and learning from others as well. And you can do that by taking classes. Maybe, there's a lot of adult classes. I know one of the local colleges here does adult classes where you can go in and they have experts in a certain area and come in. They do a 1-day class, and there's no test. You just go in and you want to learn. So you can go in and learn and get information that way, but you're also getting a lot of social interaction because you're sitting there with others, and then plus it gives you the opportunity to ask questions to the instructors as well. You can participate in online forums, whether it be for Parkinson's or whether one of your hobbies is travel. So you get on online forums and talk about travel. And when you learn and share information, it really helps to reduce your feelings of isolation and loneliness, because when you can interact and share with others, how can you be lonely? Because you're working with people on a daily basis to share what you know and listen to what they know. So isolation and loneliness are going to be caused by you just making the conscious decision that I'm not going to go out and do things. I'm just going to stay at home and not be a burden on my friends and family. And then finally, it gives you an increased sense of control and empowerment. When you can share information, you're always wanting to be prepared and on top of your game. And so the more you know about a particular topic, and maybe it's Parkinson's. Maybe you want to research and study everything there is about Parkinson's and managing Parkinson's, because then that makes you better able to have control over your disease, but it also helps you understand things from the caregiver and the physician's point of view as well. So what are some things you can do to help improve social interactions through learning and information sharing? Talked a little bit about it already. It was take some classes. Could be exercise class, could be a dance class, art class. They just give you opportunities for social interaction and cognitive stimulation. Read books and articles. There are some other things that you can do as well. And again, I talked about participating in online forums. So to tie this all together, let's go back and review the 6 benefits of maintaining a social interaction with Parkinson's disease to help prevent social isolation. Number one was combating social isolation. And we talked about the devastating effects that social isolation has on both individuals with Parkinson's and their families. Providing emotional support. Remember, the key is that emotional support goes both ways. It's a two-way street. When you both feel supported, you're going to have a great quality of life. And that's what this is all about. Number three, encouraging physical activity. Physical activity in and of itself is almost forcing us to have some type of social interaction, because if you exercise outside the house, you're bound to run into people. And if you participate in group fitness classes, you're going to make new friends and have great social interaction. Cognitive stimulation. And again, this one is very important, because if you're stimulating yourself with puzzles, games, other types of mental activities, you're helping to slow any type of progression, any type of cognitive decline. So it's key every single day that you do some type of cognitive stimulation, whether it's puzzles, games, board games. We went over a number of those things. Fostering a sense of purpose is number 5. And it's key that we wake up every day and have something to look forward to, something that's going to help us get outside the house and interact with other people. So if we can do that, it's going to help both our social interactions, and it's going to help prevent social isolation. And then finally, learning and information sharing. When you can go outside the house and take a class and learn new things, like I said, art class or a dance class. And the nice thing about a dance class is you can maybe take your spouse or significant other or a friend and just go and dance, but you're also going to be interacting with them, but you're also going to be interacting with the instructors and everyone else. So it's important that you have information sharing. I started this podcast with the story of Sarah and how she became socially isolated after her Parkinson's diagnosis. But at the end of the story, we learned that Sarah was able to overcome social isolation. So I want to conclude this podcast with another story to tie it all together. And this is the story of John. And it's about his journey with social isolation. And as he comes through at the end, becomes involved in social activities again. So here we go. When I was first diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, I was devastated. I was only 50 years old and had so much life left to live. I didn't know what to expect, and I was terrified of what the future held. One of the things that scared me the most was the possibility of social isolation. I knew that Parkinson's disease could make it difficult to get out and socialize, and I was worried that I would lose my friends and family. At first, I tried to keep my diagnosis a secret from everyone. I didn't want people to see me differently, and I was afraid of being pitied. But it was hard to keep my secret, especially as my symptoms started to worsen. Eventually, I decided to come out to my friends and family. I was nervous at first, but they were very supportive. They told me that they loved me no matter what, and that they would be there for me every step of the way. But even with the support of my family and friends, I started to feel socially isolated. I found it difficult to keep up with my social activities, and I started to withdraw from the people I loved. There were a few reasons why I became socially isolated. First, my Parkinson's symptoms made it difficult to get out and about. I had to worry about things like tremors, balance problems, and fatigue. Second, I was conscious about my Parkinson's diagnosis. I didn't want people to stare at me with prying questions. I also didn't want to be a burden to my friends and family. Finally, I was afraid of being judged. I worried that people would think I was weak or disabled. I didn't want to be seen as different. I became so socially isolated that I started to feel depressed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to see anyone. I felt like I was trapped in my own home. But then one day, I realized that I couldn't live like this anymore. I knew that I needed to get out of my comfort zone and start socializing again. I started by joining a local Parkinson's support group. It was difficult at first, but I quickly realized that I wasn't alone. The other members of the support group understood what I was going through, and they offered me support and friendship. I also started volunteering at a Parkinson's charity. Volunteering helped me feel good about myself and make a difference in the lives of others. It took some time and effort, but I was eventually able to overcome my social isolation. And now I have a close group of friends, and I enjoy participating in social activities. I'm still learning to live with Parkinson's disease, but I've come a long way since I was first diagnosed. I've learned that it's important to be open and honest about my condition, and I've learned that I'm not alone. If you're struggling with social isolation after Parkinson's diagnosis, I encourage you to reach out for help. There are many resources available to support you, including support groups, volunteering opportunities, and counseling. You don't have to go through this alone. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast, and I would ask if you would please visit my website, liveparkinsons.com, sign up for the free monthly newsletter, and leave any comments or reviews. I'd like to make these podcasts meet your needs and also share some success stories. I want to make this a community where we can share successes and help each other live better quality of lives. And if you're interested in my 4 strategies on how I lived an exceptional life with Parkinson's, my book is Spectacular Life, 4 Strategies for Living with Parkinson's Disease, My Journey to Happiness, and it's on Amazon. So I'll put links in the description below for all these things that I talked about. Thanks, and I hope to see you on future podcasts.